Um, no doubt this has been a very challenging year for all of us, professionally and personally. And working at International SOS, I had a pretty good idea of the sanitary situation as it developed in China. And saw things as they started to happen in December last year, actually just after our last physical conference at PARIMA in Kuala Lumpur. But the strength of governmental lockdowns and the lack of mobility was actually a surprise as it spread around the globe. What are the main lessons learned from a risk management perspective? Actually, the lack of risk management planning at governmental level in many countries is key to me. Risk management should be at the heart of government. This has clearly not been the case. Every citizen should expect their government to at least provide protection, including healthcare and anticipation with regards to massive crisis scenarios such as pandemics. Asia responded better compared to the rest of the world. So that's, I think, a strong message conveyed by PARIMA today. Look at successful countries during this crisis, such as Hong Kong, where Stacy is today, Taiwan, Singapore, where Kelvin is today, or South Korea, and to a certain extent, China. Why is that? They learned their lessons from past crises such as SARS. They better manage isolation and quarantine protocols, inventory of PPE such as masks, and their healthcare infrastructures. It is about priorities, and of course, it is a difficult task. Europe and America should have learned from them in terms of how to manage such a sanitary crisis. That could have helped minimizing the extent of stringent economic and social measures, such as mobility restrictions and lockdowns. Despite the warning by experts and epidemiologists over the years about the very plausible threat of a pandemic, governments around the world have continuously underinvested in public healthcare capabilities, highlighting strongly the conflict between short-term political interest and issues like pandemic, which require long-term planning and solutions. This conflict is perhaps not dissimilar to the CEOs of listed companies being motivated by meeting the next quarter's earnings and the impact on share prices versus long-term planning and transformation to ensure a true company's survival and resilience. The most adequate responses to the pandemic tend to occur in countries where healthcare infrastructure and services have been accepted as a public good that needs to be managed and planned for the benefit of the larger society and not privatized or maximized for profit. This sanitary crisis, coupled to an economic one, does highlight once again that our current economic model does not adequately take into account some critical externalities, whether it is social, environmental, sustainability, or resilience related. Now, it will hopefully be easier to talk about climate change, the surge of natural catastrophes, geopolitical tensions, and the like. There is definitely a stronger opportunity for risk managers and the members of PARIMA to enter the boardroom if they are not invited. Let's not waste this momentum. We have to take change and cyber risk, in addition to pandemic, way more seriously. We talked a lot about them, but the job is not yet done. Even the US Central Bank, the Fed, stated yesterday that, and I'm quoting, climate change poses significant risks to the financial stability. What about insurance? Many PARIMA members are not happy with the way insurers are dealing with the hardening insurance market crisis. Our members are also suffering regularly from a lack of effective and proactive support from advisors and brokers. We have recently witnessed too many times wrongful behaviors in this area. I candidly hope that the insurance industry as a whole will recognize that there is a limit to this rate increase exercise, as companies are being severely impacted by the financial realities of the pandemic. And as much as insurers are prepared to walk away from risks, insureds are similarly being put in a position where they simply cannot afford nor justify the premium increases. Risk managers need to start the process early with the insurers and brokers to represent their companies and risk appropriately again and get in the front of the queue. So there is a pivotal role to be played by a risk manager to handle the current situation. Any risk managers who have built their careers on delivering insurance cost savings year after year will have a problem and will have to think very differently. So a transformation should happen for, I would say, the more opportunistic risk managers of our community. A demonstrated knowledge of the company's operation, risk exposure, and claims history will go a long way towards differentiating your risk from the rest of the market. A lot of insurers are struggling currently. Let's face this situation. We saw over the last few weeks a number of headline news regarding separation of life and non-life businesses for some, negative quarterly results from others, and recapitalization. And are the headlines of the insurance market right now. Our current economic environment calls for the insurance market to be a more reliable risk transfer partner, which does know how to price risk relevantly and provide coverage relevant to the new landscape of risk companies are operating in. The current situation calls for a profound transformation of the insurance industry. The insurance industry as a whole needs to shift from tangible to intangible assets protection. Traditional underwriting ways need to be profoundly changed and break the insurance line silos. Internal restructuring is needed, making it more cost efficient. We did not see yet the digital transformation happening in the industry so that it can benefit to all the players of this industry, including risk manager and insurance buyers. Distribution and cost of intermediation have to be also profoundly reviewed. The work is yet to be done. The economic crisis has made it clear that the operational risks of companies have become immaterial and systemic, as financial risks have long been. Companies are exposed to global and exceptional risks that put the economy at a standstill, whether singular, such as infrastructure or supply chain, or systemic, such as climate, cyber, or health. This is why global risk management has become an essential steering tool for sustainable corporate governance. It is a strategic transformation in favor of recovery, and that responds to the quest for purpose and meaning. Resilience investment will contribute to recovery. In a world that has gone viral, this economy of risk is the health system of companies and of the entire real economy. It remains a cost, of course, but like quality or health, resilience has no price. Or rather, it is the price of everyone's confidence in the economy in order to get out of the excessive financialization of the economy. Faced with systemic crisis, a paradigm shift is absolutely necessary. Resilience first, then insurance second, what I called the true age of risks. What is the true age of risk, or what does constitute elements of this new age? Resilience through risk management. Companies must be encouraged to invest in this at the very heart of their business model. Fiscal measures should be used to encourage all investments that improve operational continuity, being redundancy of tools and sites, relocation, business continuity, or disaster recovery plans, such as the immune defenses of a living organism that is fighting to avoid a fatal shutdown and recover as quickly as possible. The edge of risk is also about resilience. Resilience also means strengthening the self-insurance capabilities of companies so that they can pool the risks on their own balance sheet more effectively over time. Here too, taxation must be an incentive. This should allow them to strengthen their equity capital through deductible provisions so that they can face future shocks with this resilience capital. Companies must be able to use their insurance and reinsurance subsidiaries with full legal and tax security. Let's face it, our global economies are quite poorly managed. Our global economies are quite poorly managing risk financing. Profit for short-term shareholders, externalities left and borne by governments, and risk debts for future generations. The difficulty of decarbonizing the economy illustrates this, unfortunately, too well. The COVID-19 crisis has clearly shown the too weak operational culture of risk in many countries and the difficulties for governments to organize the right sharing of risk in society, and its financing by the economy in a world that has become global. In this context, how PARIMA is doing? Well, speaking of resilience, the PARIMA team, led by Stacy, is doing an admirable job at adapting to this new environment and exercise a great sense of dedication and agility. I could not be prouder of them. As we said, for this Resilience Week, we asked the question, how do we keep running? So how do we keep running as risk professionals? By being part of this strong community, fully aware of its strength and eager to adapt to this new world, the PARIMA community. The current crisis creates a momentum to embark for a journey towards greater maturity and sophistication. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon that should start right now. The name of that race, the true age of risk. Let me conclude on a personal note. And I would like to mention a dear friend, Joe Villart, past president of our sister association, FERMA, in Europe. Joe, unfortunately, passed away because of COVID-19 complications over the weekend. He was a passionate advocate for risk management and dialogue among our industry and associations world. He was a friend and a supporter of PARIMA. Let me dedicate this conference to him. Thank you very much for your attention, and let me hand over now to Steve Tunstall, the General Secretary of PARIMA.